Good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's NewAccess for Small Business Owners referral session. Before we start, Beyond Blue would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we stand, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. And as an organisation with national reach, we extend our respects to all elders and Aboriginal and Torres Strait people across Australia. Beyond Blue acknowledges those who are living with and managing mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression, their families, friends, supporters, and those affected by suicide. Now, many of you have already attended our information session earlier in the month. Today's session is designed as a follow-on session from that event to provide you with guidance and tools to help you recommend NewAccess for small business to a small business owner that you may need, that you know who may be in need of support. This session has been designed based on feedback that we've received from stakeholders who said to us, NewAccess sounds like a great program, but what we would really like to know is how can we go about making a referral to a small business owner that we know who may be in need of support. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions throughout the session. There should be a blue raise a hand icon on your screen, so please use that throughout today's session to ask any questions should you have them. We will have a Q&A session at the end of today's presentation, and we will endeavour to get through all of the questions that you ask. If we don't have time to get through all of the questions, we will come back to you individually and follow up with any questions that you have. I'm delighted today to be joined by Dylan Foley, who is our NewAccess for Small Business lead. Also Alex Cooley, who's the Chief Leadership Officer from Richmond Fellowship, Queensland, who is the program servicing provider. We also have Dee Fraser on the line, who's our Clinical Governance and Quality Advisor. We're also extremely grateful to be joined again by our NewAccess coach, Laurent Atkinson, who will be providing guidance on the referral process and answering any questions that you might have. So let's begin and get stuck in with the presentation. We want to begin first of all by outlining what the purpose of today's session is and what we hope everyone will achieve by attending today. As I mentioned already in the previous slide, we did offer a session earlier in the month that covered NewAccess in a lot of detail. We had the information session that covered what NewAccess was, who it was for, and why it was developed. There is a recording of that session, and if any of you want to have a copy of that recording, please reach out and we will provide that to you. We don't want to go into too much detail on that again, but we will cover a little bit on the why and the who today, just to give you a little bit of a foundation on the service. We will also explore the mental health continuum and the signs to look out for in small business owners that you may be dealing with. We will cover the importance of your role as a trusted advisor in terms of what you may be expected and also things that you're not expected to do. We want to provide you with reassurance throughout today's presentation that you're not expected to be a counsellor, you're not expected to be a clinician. However, you can play a very important role when dealing with small business owners and potentially being in a great position to offer them support if they need it. We will provide you with guidance on how to position NewAccess for small business in a really positive way and how to have a conversation with a small business owner who might be in need of support and hopefully encourage them to make an inquiry. Finally, we'll provide you with a multitude of resources and tools that you can use to assist you in the referral and discussion process. And we will end on a Q&A session with the panel. So, what is NewAccess for small business owners? Well, as I mentioned in the previous slide, this was covered in great deal in our information session earlier in the month. However, even though there is a recording of that session available, and we would encourage all of you to request that recording, I want to provide you with a little bit of an overview before we go into the referral process. So first of all, NewAccess for small business owners is free. It's a fully funded mental health coaching program. It's specifically designed for small business owners. The coaches have a small business background, which is really important. It means that they've walked in the same shoes as the people that they're dealing with. It's 100% confidential, and this is something that's very important to small business owners. They want to know that they can discuss things without their personal issues getting outside of that private arena. There's no requirement for a doctor's referral. It's easily accessible. It can be accessed over the phone or via video conference. It's not necessary to meet face-to-face. It has been trialled in the past. It has a long history and evidence of success, with previous business owners saying that they've seen improvement in their issues as a result of attending the program. It's also available with convenient hours between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., meaning that business owners can fit it in around their business and family issues, making it really, really convenient. Ultimately, NewAccess for Small Business was born in late 2020, triggered by the impact of the pandemic on small business and the findings of a government report into small business mental health and how best to support small businesses when they're facing challenges. So why were small business owners in particular chosen as the key audience for this program? Well, the answer to this is really simple. As mentioned in the last slide, this program was born from research into small business owners and their mental health. And the findings from this report exposed 5 key results. First of all, small business owners are extremely time poor and have little time to seek help, even if it's required and desperately in need. Small business owners also tend to put their business needs ahead of their own needs, even if they have immediate needs to address. There's also a strong stigma attached to this community. Often small business owners can harbour, within this community, the small business community can harbour unhealthy attitudes around what success looks like. And this can foster a culture where there's a fear of failure and often a reluctance as a result of that to seek help and reach out. Interestingly, the research did uncover the fact that when small business owners do reach out, they tend to reach out to people that they know and trust. In particular, they reach out to their friends, they reach out to their trusted advisors, they reach out to their colleagues, or they reach out to people within their professional organizations. The reason why they reached out to these people is because they wanted to reach out to people who understood their background and understood their issues. And this was a really important point for us when putting together NewAccess for Small Business. Finally, small business owners that took part in the research expressed a specific desire to have options around accessibility if they were to seek help. And those options included being able to seek help over the phone or via video conference, and also at convenient hours, meaning that they could fit it in around their business and also their home life. Now, before we go on to talk about your role as a trusted advisor, it's important for us, first of all, to recap on some of the things that we know about mental health. When we're talking about mental health, we're not necessarily talking about mental illness. And just like our physical health, our mental health exists along a continuum, which can be flourishing at one end to significantly unwell at the other. Our mental health is not static, and it can unfortunately change at any time. So where does NewAccess fit onto this? And at what end of the continuum should NewAccess be recommended? Well, NewAccess for Small Business Owners is an early intervention program. It's designed to help small business owners that are really in that yellow to orange end of the continuum move back into the green. It's really important for us to note here that NewAccess for Small Business Owners is not a crisis recovery service. And so therefore, those people who may be at the red end of the continuum, those that have been severely impacted, where their mental health is severely impacted, perhaps they've disclosed issues where they're perhaps suicidal or having thoughts about suicide. These are not the type of people where we would recommend NewAccess for Small Business as being appropriate. People who are having those sort of thoughts or at that end of the continuum, we would suggest it would be more appropriate for them to see their doctor or have a mental health crisis support service recommended to them. Whilst this is absolutely not necessary for you to fulfill the role of counsellor or clinician, there may be some warning signs that you can look out for when you're dealing with a small business owner that might be at that yellow to orange end of the spectrum that could help you when assessing their needs. For example, they may look tired. They may be behaving out of character. They may be unable to meet tasks that were very easy for them to meet previously. They may be withdrawing from social events. They may talk about themselves in a really derogatory way. Perhaps they're experiencing financial challenges and they can't meet responsibilities that they could meet previously. Or perhaps they're distant during interactions. The key to remember here is to look out for a noticeable change in behaviour. And remember that each person is different, and trust your instincts whenever something appears concerning. If in doubt, please direct them to NewAccess. We always undergo a rigorous intake process when anyone is recommended to the service, and even if NewAccess isn't the right or most appropriate service for the participant that enters the program, they will be directed to the most appropriate service and they will get the support that they need. So, what role do you play as a trusted business advisor? The simple answer to this is a very powerful one. As a business advisor, you're not expected to be a counsellor, you're not expected to be a clinician, but you do play a very important role in terms of being able to connect small business owners to services that may be able to help them. Now, I'd like to play a video for you from David Gregory, who is the CEO from the Small Business Mentoring Service. This video captures really powerfully the role that you can play in helping a small business owner get the support that they need. Can we play the video, please?
Much of what a small business advisor does is to sit with the business, to listen, to advise, and steer them through the regulations and rules that apply to small business. It's to guide them to other resources or sources of support. An advisor isn't a clinician, but they can be the starting point to access the right resources or to recognise that help may be needed. For advisors, it's the opportunity to be the ear that listens and the shoulder on which to lean, because that's such a critical point for any small business.
I would like to compliment David's video by reading the following statement to you from Beyond Blue's Chief Community Officer, Patrice O'Brien. One of the things small business owners have consistently advised us of is, if you want me to focus on my mental health and on the mental health of my small business, then you really need to bring information to the people and places where I already go. That might be, for example, my accountant, my bookkeeper, my small business mentor, and the ATO. Empowering the community around small business with mental health skills provides real benefits to small business owners. What both David and Patrice have captured so well here is the importance of the relationship between a trusted advisor and a small business owner, and how critical this relationship can be in giving a small business owner that is in need of help the confidence and the courage to reach out and request the help that they need. Starting a conversation about mental health can seem really daunting, and people often think that they will say the wrong thing. The most important thing is to start the conversation and let the other person speak. We've provided some examples here on the screen of some types of conversation starters that you might want to have with a small business owner. Of course, we're mindful that these aren't going to be appropriate for the type of conversations that we all have with small business owners. But what is evident about these conversation starters is that they are gentle, they're warm, they're friendly, they're understanding, and they're open. These questions leave room for a small business owner to talk and feel listened to without any pressure or expectation. I want to point out here that we will provide you with some tools After this session, we'll provide you with some conversation starters in a pack that will support you with this process with small business owners. I'm now going to invite Lawrence, who is our NewAccess coach, to give us his own insights about conversation starters. Lawrence, could you perhaps share some examples of your own that might work really well with a small business owner when you're starting this conversation about mental health?
Thank you, Mel. Yes, the issue is a lot of our clients and a lot of your clients, your business advice clients, will answer that question. If we take that first one, for example, it's been a while since we caught up. How have you been going lately? A typical response might be, oh yeah, I'm fine. And then they'll leave it at that. But you need to dig a little bit deeper. You need to say, well, how are you really going? What's really happening in your life? What's keeping you awake at night? And I think those sorts of questions where you follow up those questions with another question to dig a little bit deeper will start to get you the response that you really need. Because as we've already discussed earlier on in the webinar today, there is a little bit of a stigma attached to mental health, and people may not want to own up that they have an issue or that they're suffering from a problem. And it might not be the dealing with the business, it just might be they're overwhelmed. And a lot of the clients that we're seeing at the moment are overwhelmed, they're anxious, they're lacking in motivation. So to help just dig a little bit deeper with some of those questions, how do you feel about that? How does that make you feel? What assistance have you sought? As a second and a third question to the initial question that you're asking. No.
Thanks so much, Lawrence. And I think you've captured the sentiment really well, which I'm actually going to go on to next, which is how to have that supportive conversation and let that conversation flow. Once you've started a conversation, some people worry, well, how do I continue that conversation? What do I ask next? What do I say? How do we talk about things, without it becoming uncomfortable or me perhaps saying the wrong thing? The truth is that in these sort of circumstances, the value that you can offer someone is not always in saying the right thing. It's often about listening to them and letting them talk, connecting with them, supporting them, and showing empathy. Now I'm going to show you another short video that really captures that and talks about the value of connection, and that sometimes just being there for someone is the most powerful thing that you can do. Can we play the next video, please?
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Okay, so now we've talked about how to start a conversation with a small business owner, how to continue that conversation with a small business owner, and also how to connect and show support and empathy. Now the important question to ask is, how do you position NewAccess for small business with a small business owner? If you're having a conversation with a small business owner and you think it's appropriate to go on and have the conversation about the NewAccess for small business owners program, there's lots of different ways that you can position the program in a really positive and favorable way. But the following statements might be things you want to consider, and they could be a great start. For example, NASPO is completely free. It won't cost you anything. The coaches have all come from a small business background, just like you. They understand the challenges of running a small business. They've walked in your shoes. It's confidential. You can talk to someone in confidence without having to worry about anyone finding out. Everything you talk about remains confidential. It's easily accessible. You can access the service via phone or video. You can stay at work while you make the call. You can call between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. It doesn't interfere with your work or family life. Lots of people have already been through the program and said it's really helped with their issues. The program has been specifically designed for small business owners, just like you. Ultimately, when you're positioning NewAccess for small business owners, you don't have to focus too much on the particular small business owners' issues. Just focus on the features and benefits of the program itself and talk about those. And that's the best way to start when you're positioning the program. So how about we put this into practice and bring a NewAccess for small business referral to life? Lawrence, I'm going to ask you to assist me here. We're now going to do a referral role play to show the audience how this is done. And I hope we do a good job. Lawrence is going to play the part of a trusted business advisor, essentially the role that most of you in the audience, this is the role that you fulfill. I'm going to play the part of Jamie, who's a small business owner, who's experiencing a few challenges, and Lawrence has picked up on this and thought, you know what, this might be a good opportunity to recommend this service. So Lawrence, would you like to start?
Indeed. So, Jamie, good to see you again. How are things going?
Oh, I don't know where to start. It's just been a really tough time recently. You know, I'm dropping the ball a bit. I've been working really late at night. I can't pay the bills on time, and I'm just struggling getting some sleep. You know, things are pretty tough at the moment.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. What's your biggest worry right now?
Things are just really hard right now. You know, I'm trying my best, but it just doesn't seem like it's good enough. I'm having lots of disagreements with my partner and my business partner, and it's just been a really tough 12 months. I'm just feeling really exhausted.
Yep. And you said you're not sleeping too well at night? You mentioned that.
Yeah, I've got a lot on my mind. You know, the business is it's just been a really tough few months, a tough year, and the business hasn't been doing so well, and it's just becoming really overwhelming, and it's really affecting my sleep, and I don't know what else to do. Everyone's relying on me. You know, everything's on my shoulders, and I just feel really overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's a really tough position to be in. Have you sought any help, any sort of help in terms of this issue rather than the business issues that we talk about, but in terms of, say, your mental health?
Oh, you know, my partner's said that I should talk to someone, but I've never talked to anyone in the past. You know, I've never had this issue before. I've always just carried on, and you know, I don't know. Maybe it would be a good time to talk to someone. I don't know.
There is a new program that's been developed specifically for small business owners, and it's a coaching service provided by Beyond Blue and Richmond Fellowship, and it actually is that the coaches themselves come from small business backgrounds, and they work with people like yourself to help you through the mental challenges that you have. And from what I've learned is that they provide you with the skills and the tools to help you get through it. They're not actually clinicians, they're small business people. Some of them have maybe been through similar instances to yourself. Are they somebody that you'd be interested in having a chat with?
Look, I guess potentially. I mean, what's really important is that is it definitely confidential. You know, I don't want anyone to. I don't want really talk about my business issues and it get out.
No.
You know, it's really important that it's confidential.
Yes, yeah, fully understood. It's a confidential service. You only talk about your issues with the coaches. They do have clinical supervisors who they may refer to in terms of the treatment, that getting the right treatment for you. And it's a short service. It's a 6-week service, but in that time they provide the skills and the tools for you to carry on for beyond the treatment sessions. And it's provided free of charge. It's a wonderful service. A couple of my clients have gone through it, and we've been able to notice the difference just in that period of time that they've experienced as they've come through the treatment sessions.
Oh, that sounds like something I consider. The only thing is, like, I'm working so hard at the moment. You know, I just don't have time to see someone during the day, and I don't know how I'd fit. I don't know how I'd fit that in with my schedule right now. I've just got so much on.
Well, the other thing is they've made it available as much as they can. It's available from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 5 days a week, so they can see you outside business hours, although we understand with small business hours are all hours just about. But it's also available via video and via phone, so you don't actually have to leave your office or your premises. You can put aside an hour initially for assessment, and then half an hour each week for the following 5 weeks. Put that into your schedule and just have that meeting with them. Would you like me to provide you their website and a telephone?
Yeah.
Find out more information.
Well, thanks, Lawrence. That would be really good, actually. If I can get their number, I think it's probably the right time for me to do something about this.
I think it's worth investigating, and I think once you've had a chance to have a look at it, let me know what you think. You'll need to refer it directly yourself. It's not something that I can refer for you, but it's something you'll need to approach. But I think it'd be really valuable for you.
Thanks, Lawrence. That's great. Lawrence, thank you so much for going through that role play. We really wanted to do that today to give the audience a bit of an overview of how this referral process looks in practice. And obviously that's just a role play, it's just an example, but it just shows how easy the process can be once you start that conversation, and that it can just be a very simple 5-minute conversation. Now, Lawrence was very helpful going through the role play with me, and Lawrence is now going to take that referral process one step further and explain what happens after referral. So we've just shown you in the role play what happens during a referral, what happens once the participant has engaged and followed up, made an inquiry. Lawrence, if you could shed some light on that, that would be great.
Thanks, Mel. Yes, well, initially the client goes through an intake process. So if they make an application via the form on the Beyond Blue website, or they phone our team, our intake team, the intake team are not clinicians. They're there to basically take the client details. So they'll get things like date of birth, address, contact information about their GP. They will then set an appointment with an available coach. So they'll work through our diaries and find who's available for the assessment. The assessment normally takes about an hour. And then they send a welcome pack to the client, which includes some questionnaires. It also includes information sheets on who to contact if they're in a crisis situation, and they can speak to somebody beyond the service that we provide. That includes people like Lifeline, Kids Helpline, Men's Line Australia, Suicide Callback Service, but it also provides other services such as Council of Small Business Australia, Everymind, Head for Business, the Australian Taxation Office, or the Australian Small Business Family Enterprise Ombudsman. They're people that we, the services that we don't provide. We are purely around mental health. So that information pack goes out from our intake team. The intake team then advises the coaches like myself that an appointment has been made for a client. At appointment, we will go through a model that's been developed specifically by the CBT Institute. We work with the client to work out exactly what their problem is right here and now. We create a problem statement around that. We administer the clinical questionnaires, which look at people's levels of anxiety and depression. We review those each week as we go through the treatment period. We also set some end of treatment goals that may not be achievable right now, right at this moment, but that by the end of our 6-week time together will be either have been achieved or more achievable, or on their way for the clients to be achieved. We as coaches provide guided self-help. I say to my clients, I'm like the coach on the side of the footy field or the netball court. I'm there with a whistle. Not that I'm blowing a whistle, but I'm giving guidance and I'm giving instruction. We provide tools, we provide workbooks for the clients to work through, and we check in with them each week as to how their progress is going. That's ongoing coaching and reviewing weekly. The important thing is that as a coach, we are giving our clients tools and skills to carry on beyond the time that we're with them. The most important thing is when we discharge a client at the end of 6 weeks, that they feel comfortable enough to be able to carry on their own, that they know where the problems have arisen, how they've arisen. We cover relapse prevention to make sure that if they do slip back, and we understand that there might be a slippage from time to time, they've got the tools to recover from that and move forward. I think the key thing, as being demonstrated in the video, and in fact Mel mentioned it earlier, the key thing is connection, and we can connect with our clients, we can speak to them, we can understand their problem, we can give them the tools and skills to manage this themselves so that they won't fall back into the situation that they find themselves in when they come to us, and for us at the end of that time for them to feel confident in being able to manage their situations themselves. Thanks, Mel.
Thank you so much, Lawrence. I know that we're so fortunate to have you as one of our NewAccess coaches, and we're so thrilled to have you help us with these presentations. And I know that the participants that are going through the program, the testimonials that we're starting to get, they just really value that level of support and connection that they have with the coach. It's so invaluable. So thank you so much for giving us your insight today. I really, really appreciate that. Okay, so once you've had the conversation, once you've positioned NASBO for small business owners, the next thing to do is to make a referral. And how do you do that? Well, there's one of three ways that you can make a referral. You can either direct somebody to the Beyond Blue website, and there's a landing page specifically for NewAccess. You can give somebody the telephone number. It's a specific number that will direct the participant through to the NewAccess for Small Business support service. Or there's an email, a direct email to the service. So you can make a referral in any way you choose. And you can do that in person once you've had the conversation with a small business owner. It's important to note here that we also have a whole range of resources that are available for you to use. So some of the resources that we have this information printed on it. So for example, there's a wallet card that somebody can keep in their wallet. There's flyers, there's posters. All of this information has the referral points of contact on them. This is information that you can print off. We'll send you links for you to do that. You can print off yourself. You can order this collateral from us if you want. So if you don't want to meet with someone in person and make this referral in person, you can also make a more passive referral and just hand out a wallet card, for example, or a flyer if you feel more comfortable doing that. Please remember, we've got really helpful scripting and email templates to assist you, and we will send these out by the end of the day. All of this information is available to support you with this referral process and make it as easy as possible for you when you have a conversation with a small business owner about challenges that they might be facing. Now, in terms of other helpful resources, if following this session you'd like to know more about small business and mental health, or perhaps you'd like to know more about having a supportive conversation with a small business owner, or perhaps you know a small business owner that you're worried about at the moment and you want to find the tools or resources to have a conversation with them about their mental health and challenges that they might be facing, there are training courses that are available to support you with this process. And there's two in particular that we strongly recommend. So one of them is Beyond Blue's Mental Wellbeing Support Yourself and Small Business course. And there's also the Counting on You course. Both of these courses are absolutely fantastic. They've been specifically developed to support trusted advisors have supportive conversations with small business owners around these issues. And we strongly recommend these courses. If that's something that you'd be interested in, please, by all means, reach out to us at the end of this presentation if you would like to know more. Now we have come to perhaps one of the most important parts of the presentation, which is our question and answer session. And I've had quite a few questions come through already. So I'm going to direct these to our panel, who I know are ready and waiting for their questions. So I might direct the first question to Lawrence, actually, if that's okay. So Lawrence, we've had a question that's come through about the type of issues that somebody might contact the service about. So, sorry, not the type of issues somebody might have, and how would you know how to refer them? So if somebody calls the service with specific financial issues, what advice are they given, and where are they currently referred?
If it's specific financial advice, that's not an area that we're qualified, or in fact it's not part of the model. We would refer those people back to their own accountant if they have one, or to the ATO. We refer them back to their normal sources of financial advice, because it's not an area that we would get involved in. There is a list of support options that we can provide to people, but it's not something we would get involved in. It's beyond our remit.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, Alex, it's lovely to have you on the line today. Thank you so much for joining us. We'd like to direct the following question. I'd like to direct the following question to you, if that's okay. It's great that the coaches have a small business background. Are you able to share any more information about the small business experience of the coaches?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for saying it's great to have me on the call. I'm so delighted to be part of this process. And I can't speak more highly of our coaches. You know, you've seen Lawrence in action today, and that's the quality of the support people will get. So the coaches have a very varied background in terms of small business. I guess one of the first things that we should say is everybody's definition of what a small business is completely different. So we've got people who were sole traders, a number of people who have a background in business coaching, business support, business advice, business counseling, through to people who've run retail outlets, people who also have at times worked in bigger business context. So there's a multitude of experience. I think it's also worth mentioning that as an organisation, we have two executives now oversighting the programme, myself and another executive, and both of us have got our own small business experience as well. So we can kind of bring that into the mix.
That's great. I can definitely say myself, of all the questions we get about the NewAccess for Small Business Service, we get so many questions about the coaches. They are a hot topic with people. Next question I'd like to direct to Dylan, if that's okay. Exactly how does this service differ from support services like FCA and MHS, which incorporate guidance from trained counsellors?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. It's a good question as well, and I sort of reflect on the use of the word counsellors as well. So I'd just say with the NewAccess for small business owners, our coaches are trained in low intensity CBT, which is for mild to moderate depression and anxiety, and what they deliver is a structured course of guided self-help, as opposed to some of the other support services, which tend to be one-off interactions with those counsellors. I'd also just say with FCA is obviously financial counselling, and that NewAccess to small business is very much specifically around the mental health of the participants and not giving out business advice. So they're probably the main differences between the programs.
Okay, fantastic. And the next question I might direct at Dee. What approach should I take with someone I have concerns about who does not want to talk or get help?
Thanks, Mel. And hello, everyone who's on the session today. Thank you for being interested in supporting people around you. Look, I think the key question here is also being respectful of the person's wishes, and it's a really fine balance between wanting to provide support but also providing support that is unwanted. So as Lawrence mentioned and Mel discussed earlier, there's a number of, I suppose, conversation starters that can initiate that. But if the person is unwilling to talk, I think it's just part of the response needs to be being mindful of that, but also looking for opportunities to pose the question again, and looking for alternative ways to commence that sort of dialogue. But if you have been able to start the conversation and the person is unwilling to look at help, it is, I suppose, if you're in a position to try and understand what their concerns are about help seeking, and if there are some beliefs about help seeking that may not necessarily be based in, I guess, some of the newer options for help seeking, like NewAccess. So it's just to understand what their concerns are, maybe a window to supporting them to receive help. But I think it's in your various roles, being available to that person, understanding their concerns, and offering that support if they wish to raise that again. Mel, back to you.
Thank you, Dee. That's great. Alex, we've had a question come through about how quickly somebody gets support from NewAccess once they've made an inquiry. So once a participant has inquired, how soon will they receive contact and start the intake process?
Again, Mel, another great question. I'd like to preface it with a little bit more information before directly answering that, though, because early on when you were speaking to Lawrence, you were asking about the reasons that people may need to contact the service, or may be filtering through their mind, should I contact the service or not? And what we don't want is, we don't want people sitting there thinking, is this the right service or not the right service? If you've got any doubts, ring, and we can help you work through that. And if we're not the right place, we can help you find the right place too. But we would much prefer people made contact rather than sit with any kind of doubts. Once you've made contact to our service, you should hear within 2 business days. That's the plan. Having said that, again, we are realistic about this. Sometimes people will reach out and then their business takes over. So we will recontact people if we can't get in contact with them within that 2 business day period of time.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Alex. Dylan, we talked a little bit about how to position NewAccess for small business and the things that you should say. One of the questions we've had is are there any things that you should avoid saying? So things that you should definitely not say when you're trying to position NewAccess for small business.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. It's a great question. And I'd sort of endeavour to sort of keep it quite simple here. I think there's probably 2 main things to avoid saying we're talking about NewAccess, and that would be that it's a business support or financial counselling help. Just if you're able to sort of make that distinction that it is to support people's mental health, and also that it is not a crisis support line. So if people are sort of going through a really tough time, and it might not be the most appropriate service, just if you could avoid saying that it will sort of cover all manner of mental health issues. But I'd also really encourage people to, if you're not sure about what to say or what not to say, to sort of be comfortable sort of, I guess, sharing less about the program. You don't need to be an expert on what NewAccess for small business owners is or isn't. You can always refer people to the Beyond Blue website, which has really great resources about what the program is and some FAQs. And also, as Alex said, people can call up and ask questions, and they can get the specific answers from the people who are trained to deliver the service. And I think that's a much better way. And so don't expect yourselves to really understand about the nuances of it and the ins and outs of the service. But just also, really focus on trying to get that referral, and then we can sort of take over from there to provide that information about what it is and what it isn't. Thanks, Mel.
Thank you. Dee, I might refer this question to you if that's okay. We've had a question that's come through about people who are in crisis, so people at that really, the red end of the continuum. If you're dealing with someone that appears to be in a crisis, can I still refer them to NASBO, or should I refer them to a crisis support service like Lifeline?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Mel. I guess continuing on from what Dylan was just explaining, this service is from, I suppose, mild to moderate needs, and it is hard if you are a person who's supporting someone to seek support. It's like, well, how do I work that out? And I think what we're discussing today is if you feel that the person is at risk of harm to themselves or others, NewAccess isn't the place to refer them to in that moment. It is to follow I suppose, more of a crisis or emergency response, and that is really to contact one of the services that Mel has just suggested now, and also to stay with that person if it's safe to do so, for them to access those supports. But perhaps, Mel, it is a great question, and one I can understand you would certainly want to know the answer to when you're commencing these discussions, because you're not really certain where the conversation will go. And Mel, perhaps what we could do is provide some information in the follow-up to this session with more detailed information. And as based on your particular role, you may already have some training in these mental health first aid steps, but it's probably more in that domain that I would be looking to be informed, like, what do I do in the crisis situation? And we can provide some good suggestions and resources to help you equip yourselves and feel confident and comfortable if you do find that the person is really in a crisis, at a crisis level. So it is all very straightforward, the information, but probably, Mel, we could send that on later rather than taking up time. But a great question, and one that can build your confidence in starting these discussions when you have some of that information in your tool bag. Thanks, Mel.
Thank you so much, Dee. Alex, we've had a question which I'd love to direct at you, actually. I think you'd be fantastic answering this, which is, have there been any early insights that you can share about the program in terms of what we're seeing so far with participants that have already come through?
Yeah, Mel, and yet again, another great question. So I'm really impressed with the quality of questions that are coming through. There are two real strands that we're seeing that people are saying in terms of the benefits they're getting out of the program to date. But I've got to kind of give a caveat that obviously we're in the early stages of this program. But the two strands that are standing out, one is one that's been mentioned a little so far early on, which is connection, just actually feeling listened to. And there's a mountain of research in the mental health field that says that really makes a difference in people's experience of life, their resilience, their ability to move forward. It's just that feeling of being heard. So people are talking about that. And then the other thing that's starting to shine through is people are talking about how pragmatic the program is. As a small business owner, sometimes it's great to be heard, but you also want to have some tools to do things with and to actually make a difference. So our coaches, people like Lawrence, are actually able to give people practical tools that can make a difference in their life. And that's really shining through. People are saying, I now know what to do to make a difference. So they're the two big themes at the moment now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alex. we've had a couple of questions that I might try and combine into one actually. So one of the questions is this a service, is this a program that you can only access by referral, i.e. can a participant contact NewAccess directly? Does it have to come through a referral? And secondly, if a trusted advisor does refer someone, do you have a responsibility to that participant? Do you have to follow up with them or check on their progress? And Dee, I might pass this to you if that's okay.
Thank you, Mel. So I suppose on the nature of referrals, it is a word that you often hear in, I guess, more clinical or service-based settings. And NewAccess, for this session today, referral really means supporting someone to access the service. And there's no requirement for an individual to have any other involvement from any sort of service or GP. They can, in a sense, refer, which I'm trying not to use that word refer, but it is really for them just to contact the service. They can self-refer or they can contact the service. It's I guess an underpinning of NewAccess is that it is meant to be really a service that has no barriers to contacting, and the intake process and the assessment process works with the person to identify if this is the best fit for their needs. And in that sense, if it isn't necessarily the ideal service, the coaches and the intake team will assist the person in being, I suppose, rooted to that next level of care or the service. Within the service, we call it maybe sort of stepping up to a more appropriate service. But as soon as that person contacts NewAccess, they are connected through to support, whether that be through NewAccess or an alternative service that the coaches and the clinical supervision team determine with the person that will be better suited to their needs. But Mel, I'm not sure if I've fully answered that question, but I'll stop talking and you can relay that question to me so I get all the answer in.
You did a great job, Dee. We're getting lots and lots of questions, so I'm gonna have to be careful because of time. We're actually getting a lot of questions about the coaches, and Alex, I might come back to you on this. How does somebody, people who are interested in becoming a coach, actually, how does someone apply to become a coach?
That, again, is an amazing question and one I wasn't actually expecting to hear today, so that's kind of thrown me a little bit. But if there is somebody who's listening or somebody who's interested, then Richmond Fellowship Queensland is the organisation that's the provider for Beyond Blue. You can make contact via our website, or you could actually even use the intake process that's described there and reach out to us. We'll find a way of getting back to anybody that makes contact. I should also add, in terms of the coaches, when we talked earlier on about their small business experience themselves, we've actually got one of our coaches who went through another version of NewAccess. So that led to them becoming a coach as well when they saw the power of this intervention.
Thank you so much. I think we've got time for perhaps one more question, and I might direct this at you, Dylan, if that's okay. We've had a question around eligibility, and what's the criteria for someone applying and being considered as a small business owner?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. It is a good question, and we do have to sort of keep reiterating this to make sure it's obvious, because as we said quite early on in the presentation, that everyone has a different idea about what a small business is and whether they are small business owners. So for the purposes of this program, we have defined a small business as any business that has 20 or fewer employees, and including sole traders. And so that's from any industry across Australia. And so that's just the main one. There's no revenue limits or anything like that. We are also at the moment, just to be clear, is that we're taking a pretty open door approach. And so if someone identifies as a small business owner, we are at the moment accepting them into the program while we have capacity to serve them. And so if you're not sure if someone's a small business owner or if or the sort of criteria, it's still okay to send them across, and during the intake, we'll assess them for that eligibility. And so, yeah, it's really just about those number of employees, but at the moment we are having that, just having that quite open door policy. The other thing around eligibility for the program is also just if they are seeking, if they're currently having other psychological support, it's not appropriate for them to also go through the NewAccess program at the same time. And so, yeah, that's just another thing that we don't like to have those two interventions going on at the same time. It doesn't mean that at any point in the past you couldn't have had any psychological interventions or support, but just, yeah, not concurrently, we ask as well. And then just the final one is just it's 18 plus at the moment.
Thanks so much, Dylan. That's great. And I think, we obviously covered this in great detail in the information session, and we didn't go into too much detail in this session because it was really aligned to how to make a referral today. But the fact that we're getting these kind of questions is great, and it shows that people are really interested in the program. And like I said earlier today, we do have a recording of the first session, and we really encourage you to reach out for that recording if you didn't attend the first session, or if you'd like a refresher on exactly what this program is about. And of course, there will be a recording of today's session as well, which we would be delighted to send out to you after the event. Okay, so we are now we've now completed our presentation. We hope that you found this session of value. I'd like to first of all take this opportunity to say a huge thank you to Dylan, Dee, Alex and Lawrence for kindly assisting me with the presentation and for a really great Q&A session and doing a fantastic job. You've been absolutely wonderful, and I really we all appreciate your support, so thank you so much. We'd also like to say a huge thank you to all of our attendees, particularly those stakeholders who've been so involved and contributed so generously to the development and growth of this program. We're incredibly grateful for your support. We'd also like to say thank you to everyone's interest, and I think we've received so many questions in this session. I just want to say how impressed we've been by everyone's willingness to get on board with this program, and it really shows how willing people are to help people within the small business community. We really look forward to working with all of you and promote this program within the small business community over the coming months. So thank you all so much for attending today, and please reach out if you need any further information, and we will send out a recording of today's session in the coming days. Thank you so much.